The rain had been falling for hours, turning the empty streets into rivers of silver beneath the streetlights. I almost kept walking. I almost convinced myself that the woman sitting alone on the bench outside my apartment building was someone else's responsibility. But then she looked up, her eyes carrying the kind of exhaustion that couldn't be hidden behind a polite smile, and in that silent moment I realized that sometimes the smallest decisions become the ones that rewrite an entire life. I had no idea that a single sentence spoken out of simple kindness would change everything I believed about love, trust, and home. If stories about second chances and unexpected connections touch your heart, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness for more emotional journeys that remind us how one compassionate choice can transform a lifetime. I had lived alone for nearly 3 years after losing my wife to illness. The apartment still looked like a museum of memories, carefully arranged so nothing important would ever move. Her favorite mug remained in the kitchen cabinet. The blanket she loved rested across the couch. Even the small plant by the window had survived because I watered it every Sunday exactly as she used to. Friends told me I needed to move on, but moving on felt like admitting that everything we had shared belonged to the past. Instead, I simply learned how to exist beside the silence. Days became routines, and routines became years. Work filled the daylight, while the evenings belonged to loneliness. That rainy night I noticed the woman because she wasn't trying to hide from the storm. She simply sat there, soaked to the skin, holding an old backpack as if it contained everything she still owned. There was something strangely peaceful about her despite the obvious hardship. She wasn't asking strangers for money or pleading for help. She looked like someone who had simply run out of places to go. I hesitated, knowing how dangerous the world could be and how foolish it might seem to invite a stranger inside. Yet something inside me whispered that if I walked away, I would regret it for the rest of my life. When I finally approached her, I asked if she was all right. She smiled politely, though her lips trembled from the cold, and quietly admitted she had nowhere safe to spend the night. Every shelter in the city was full, and she had already walked for hours hoping something would change. Looking into her tired eyes, I heard myself say the words before my cautious mind could stop me. I told her she could stay until morning. Relief spread across her face so gently that it almost broke my heart. Then she looked at me with a playful but strangely meaningful smile and softly asked what would happen if she never left. I laughed awkwardly, assuming she was joking, but something about those words lingered long after we stepped inside. Her name was Emily. She accepted nothing she didn't need and thanked me for every small kindness, from the warm towel to the bowl of soup I hurriedly prepared. She noticed the framed photographs on the shelves but never asked painful questions. Instead, she admired the apartment as though it were already filled with warmth rather than grief. Before going to sleep on the couch, she quietly watered the little plant by the window because she noticed its soil had dried slightly. Such a tiny gesture should have meant nothing, but it was the first time in years someone besides me had cared for something inside those walls. Morning arrived with bright sunshine, yet Emily didn't rush toward the door. She cleaned the dishes before I even woke up and apologized for using my coffee. She explained that she had recently escaped an abusive relationship, leaving behind everything except a backpack and enough courage to walk away. She had been searching for work, but without a permanent address, every opportunity disappeared before it began. Listening to her story reminded me that pain wears many different faces. Mine had arrived through loss. Hers had arrived through survival. I helped her contact a local community center that specialized in assisting women rebuilding their lives. They found her temporary housing, and before she left, she thanked me with a hug that carried no romance, only gratitude. The apartment immediately felt empty again. Surprisingly, the silence felt heavier than before. Days later I discovered she had left a handwritten note tucked beside the little plant. It simply said that kindness grows when someone believes another person deserves a chance. Weeks passed before Emily unexpectedly knocked on my door again. This time she wasn't asking for shelter. She proudly carried a bakery uniform and a box of fresh pastries. She had found a job, rented a tiny room, and wanted to thank the person who had believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. We shared coffee, laughed about how terrible I was at cooking, and for the first time since my wife's passing, genuine laughter echoed through the apartment. Our friendship grew naturally. Some weekends we volunteered together at the same community center that had helped her. We served meals, organized donated clothing, and listened to stories from people whose lives had been turned upside down. Every face reminded us that hardship often hides behind ordinary smiles. Emily possessed a remarkable ability to make every stranger feel seen. Watching her encourage others slowly encouraged me as well. Without realizing it, I had begun living again instead of merely remembering. Not everyone understood. Some friends warned me that I was becoming emotionally attached too quickly. Others questioned Emily's intentions simply because our story had begun with a stranger needing shelter. Their doubts planted seeds of uncertainty inside me. I started pulling away, afraid that opening my heart again would only lead to another unbearable loss. Emily noticed the distance but never demanded explanations. She simply respected my silence with the same kindness I had once offered her. One evening she invited me to the bakery after closing time. The smell of fresh bread filled the empty room while golden light spilled across the wooden tables. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was the first pay stub she had ever received after rebuilding her life. Folded beside it was the old note she had written for me months earlier. She explained that she carried another copy because those words reminded her that one person's compassion had changed her future forever. Looking into her eyes, I realized fear had been stealing precious moments from both of us. I finally admitted something I had hidden even from myself. The apartment had stopped feeling haunted the day she walked through its door. My memories of my wife had not disappeared, instead, they had become gentler. Love hadn't been replaced. It had simply made room for hope. Emily smiled through tears because she understood that healing never asks us to forget. It only teaches us that hearts are capable of carrying both grief and joy together. Months later we transformed my late wife's favorite dream into reality. She had always wanted to create a neighborhood kitchen where anyone could enjoy a warm meal regardless of their circumstances. Emily and I worked tirelessly with volunteers, local businesses, and generous neighbors until the dream finally opened its doors. Every meal served became a quiet reminder that kindness creates ripples far beyond the moment it is given. The little plant by the apartment window had grown into a flourishing green centerpiece, just as our lives had. If this story has touched your heart so far, please write the words, "Kindness changes lives," in the comments. Your message may encourage someone who desperately needs hope today. Standing together at the community kitchen's entrance one peaceful evening, I remembered the rain, the lonely bench, and the question Emily had asked with that unforgettable smile. She had wondered what would happen if she never left. The answer had been quietly unfolding ever since. She never truly left because she had become family in the deepest sense, not through obligation, but through compassion, trust, and shared purpose. The home that had once echoed with loneliness now overflowed with laughter, conversations, and people finding comfort around a simple meal. If this story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach more people who may need a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can become the beginning of someone's greatest miracle. Sometimes home isn't the place we protect from strangers. Sometimes home is the place where a stranger reminds us how to live again.